And I hadn't planned on doing this just yet, but the more I thought about it, I think it's time to throw you a complete curveball, and this is where everybody turns it off. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating our first document class. Now, I hope that doesn't scare anybody off because this will level up you as a programmer. This is like this is the superstar in Mario. This is the, you know, this is the squirrel suit for anyone that's old enough to remember this stuff. So, what is a document class? Now, a document class is it's a way to organize the code and centralize it and add a lot more structure to your project. And if you want to make a full game that's commercial, that's ready for the public, I'd go as far to say that you almost can't without doing this. Or let me say that if you didn't do it this way, if you just kept coding in the timeline on frames, it would take you 10 times as long, 20 times as long to make a project because there'd be so many headaches that are just incredibly easy to avoid by just dealing with this learning curve. And if you'll bear with me on this tutorial, I'm going to go slow and I'm going to try to explain it as simply as I can because it's a little bit of a theoretical concept here, at least more than anything we've dealt with so far in this series. But bear with me, I'm going to go real slow. You can always fast forward, I won't even know. I'd rather go too slow than too fast because I can't go back in time and add to my tutorial once it's posted. I do not yet have that technology. So we've got our same project file as the last tutorial. I'm not going to go through the code. Go see tutorial 7 if you didn't. And whoops, what am I doing? I'm creating trouble already. Just trying to extend the code window a little here. There we go. My computer runs slow with this screen recorder on, and it shouldn't because it's pretty much a new computer. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is, for now, we're going to gray out, we're going to comment out all the code in frame 1, which is all of our functionality. If you remember, all the following frames, all they do is call this function. The 95% of the code is here, and you can again see tutorial 7 if you need to know what it does. So to remind you this, I commented the code out. Get ahead of myself here. So we're going to create our document class. Now we're going to go to File, New. We're going to select Actionscript class in this window that pops up. There's a box here for the class name. We're going to type in main. I like to call my, excuse me, take a drink of water. I like to call my document class main. It's just a habit. You can call it whatever you want as long as you know it is and stick to it. So you can see as soon as I click that, we had this window that popped up. Now this is the code editing side of Flash. We're still in Flash, but some of the menu stuff is different and etc. These shortcuts. So we've got the basics of our constructor function here. Now, before I go through this, let's save it because this is a new file. It's completely separate from our FLA file, and it's just given a default name. So we're called it main. The name of our constructor function, everything needs to match, meaning the name of the file itself, which is an ActionScript file. See this AS? It's not a Flash file. You don't need the Flash software to write these. Actually, you can do it in Flash Develop or Flash Builder. I should say you don't need Flash Professional. So it's an ActionScript file, main.as, And it doesn't have to be. There are ways to have it not be in the same folder, but that's just added complexity that we don't need right now. So let's just say for right now that it has to be in the same folder as your Flash file. And you can see my Flash files here. It's sort of grayed out, but I think you can see it. So I'm saving it. It's called main.as. We're just going to refer to it as main. It's called main. So what we're going to do is, before I go into this, we're going to go into our FLA and we're going to go over to this class column in the properties box. Now you can see that if I mouse over it, what does it say there? Document class. There we go. So we're going to type in main. And all this is the file name of your document class. You know what that is. It's main. I'm going to save it. We'll go over here to our document class. So what we've got here, you're going to notice some new syntax here. And don't be scared of it. Embrace it. Embrace the new. So any class that you write is going to have this structure. First, you have your package declaration. And mainly the point of the package is for file organization more than anything. It does what it sounds like. It's for creating a file structure. Just like on your computer, on your desktop, you have a pictures folder from that trip to London that you had, or wherever. Inside that pictures folder, maybe you have subfolders that say at the bar, at the whatever. So it's the same concept. It's for organizing your files. But if your document class, if your classes in general, all of them are in the same folder as your Flash file, you don't need anything after here. It's just package. It just lets them need to know where it is on the computer in relation to your Flash file. So what we have next is the name of our class here. And it's a public. We're not going to get into public. Please ignore public right now. Assume everything is public, even though there's actually private and protected. And there's one other one I'm forgetting too. For now, everything's public. And all that means is that all other classes can access it. If it's private, if something's private, it can only be accessed from within that class, etc. But for now, public. That's all you need to know. So this is the name of our class. And actually, we need to put something else here. I'm surprised it doesn't do it for you in this case, but we're going to write, and I'm going to explain this, extends movie clip. And you'll notice it also, a nice thing of the new Flash CS 5.5, I don't know if 5 does it, but 5.5, if you use a class, it imports it for you. And this is important to know, especially if you're using an older version of Flash or different software, Flash Developer or whatever. I don't use that software, I'm not sure. But if it doesn't automatically recognize which classes you're using, which this is one here, just the fact that I wrote movie clip, it imported it for me. Because you're working outside of Flash, you need to import any built-in classes or reference your classes that you bring into it. So I just imported movie clip. Now, if I want other classes, you're going to see as I write code as we go on, it's going to import them automatically. At least it should. If not, I'll get an error message and I'll figure it out myself. But because you're outside of Flash, you have to bring, or essentially you have to reference any of Flash's built-in classes or your other classes. Same concept I was just talking about here with the package. This stuff up here is just about file organization, and it's just telling it where to look. In the same way you can upload a file and you got to browse to your computer where that file is stored. It's the same concept. So anyway, let's ignore this stuff up here. This is the declaration of our class. Public class It's called main. You can see here, all this, remember once again, anything that's in black is your own code. It's a name of something. It's something that's not syntax, just like public and class and extends, and this is all syntax. It's built into language. Main, I could write anything here, and that's why it's in black. So just keep that in mind. Next important concept. Every document class, other classes don't need constructor functions. Actually, I can say that for a fact. Other classes that are not the document class, if you write your own class and it's not the document class, it's like a hero class or an enemy class. It's two perfect examples of something you turn into a class. Would be your main character in your game, or your enemies. You would want to make their own class for that to organize the code once again. Brain fart, rather. You don't need constructor functions for everything, but a constructor function is required for the document class. And what is a constructor function? Well, we've actually used them before. For example, in one of the previous tutorials, we had a code that was something like this. Num integer equals 5. I'm sorry, that's a bad example. We're going to go with a movie clip. The basic data types don't have constructor functions. So movie clip equals new movie clip. Now you might have seen this line of code. This is a common line of code. This is the equivalent of going in the Flash IDE and doing this. New symbol, movie clip, you give it a name, hit OK. It appears over here in the library, right? This is the same thing, but it's doing it through code. And when you do that in Flash interface, it does this behind the scenes. So what's my point here? I know I sound like I'm digressing, but this new keyword, which you're going to see a lot, signifies that you're constructing a new object. So that's a constructor function. Now, our constructor function, now all the point of this tutorial is to show you that you can take the same code that we were writing in the timeline and put it into a document class, which is, I assure you, I can't stress it enough, is better. Undoubtedly better. Let's go back there and take our code. Now, for now, I'm just going to copy this one line because it's going into our constructor function, which again constructs the object. I'm sorry, I got digressed here. It constructs the object, yes, you know that, but it's the first function that's called. It's like a string of dominoes. If you imagine your game, your program, like a string of dominoes, the constructor function is that first domino that you push, and it sets everything in motion. It's run automatically when the document class is first loaded up. And the document class is loaded up because it's the document class and because it's called to in your Flash file. So it's called, it runs its constructor function. Now all we're going to do is take the same fly right function that makes the character move across the screen, and we're going to call that in our constructor function. Now, but what I need to do is to take all this code and copy it, and I'm just going to move it, and let me format it a little bit here. It's important now that we're using a document class, we got to make everything look. Sorry, I got to see why this thing is slowing down my computer. It's just making this take longer than it needs to. Come on. All right. So it's important to keep the structure clean here for our document class. I like to put lines between everything, empty lines, whatever helps you clearly read code. Just take the time to do it, because as your projects grow in size, you really have to. It's gonna get tough, even if you are organized. If you're not organized, you're screwed. So what I just copied all the code here, and so when our constructor function runs, it calls the fly-right function. You know what that does. And that sets into motion the code that tests if the flyer guy is touching the square, and if he is, it calls the pull backward function, etc. The important point is I'm taking what was on the timeline and I'm putting it into my document class. And again, this is the hub. This is the trunk of the tree. This is the source of everything in your project, because you're going to have a document class and you're going to have other classes that connect to it and that import into it. And you're going to need to do that. So just to show you, so we have the same functionality, but it's all happening in the document class. Remember, this code is all grayed out. So the program wouldn't know what to do if it weren't reading my document class. And I can prove that to you by just deleting the constructor function, and this stuff will never get called. Oh, what did I do? Whoops, sorry about that. So the point being, you're separating your art assets from your code. It's just, I don't know how to properly explain so much why it's important. I guess I have to stop talking and just illustrate it in the future. But you're gonna need to do it, and I'm just gonna give you a brief example of what you would do. So you would bring into your document class, you would bring in other classes. So say you're bringing in the hero of your game, and it was part of the hero class. Right there, you're creating a new hero. It's a new instance of a class. Now, this is stuff for another tutorial, but the point is just that this is the hub. You're bringing everything into it. You're organizing all the code. Now, there are many reasons why this is important, but it's important to keep the IDE, to keep this screen here for what it was designed for. And it really wasn't designed to write a lot of code. Little bits of code are fine, and it's just you want to keep it separate, and you're going to see more your why in the future. So I think that's the base of it. I actually want to show you, I want to put a little more theory in your head here as to, I realized I glossed over one thing, and I want to cover, it's a little more theoretical. If you're not interested in, turn it off. But it's important nonetheless for the sense of learning and for the sense of down the road it all making sense. So I think I got sidetracked when I was supposed to talk about this here, but our class extends movie clip. Now, what does that mean? It means we're extending, aka inheriting, a lot of information from the movie clip class, which, as you know, is built into Flash. It's one of the most common ones that everybody uses because it's one of the most powerful. So we're extending movie clip. Now I got this page here from Adobe's own reference for the language. So it just helps illustrate my point. So you can see this line is most important here. And by the way, you're going to see a connection here, just like what this line here is the equivalent of this line here. Public class main extends movie clip. This is a public dynamic class called movie clip. Now it inherits, extends. If you extend a class, you're inheriting. Now, if you look at this here, a movie clip, this shows you the hierarchy of everything. Now, you don't need to understand what all these classes are. I just want you to get the concept because it's important when you're writing classes and as your projects grow in size, you're ideally going to want to separate functionality between them. Functions should be small. They should do one or two things, ideally one main thing. And it's the same concept with classes. You don't want to have a class that's 5,000 lines of code because debugging it and problem solving is a nightmare. I can tell you from making this mistake and then having to fix it, and it's even worse if you're already into a project. I've abandoned whole projects for simple organizational reasons that I didn't realize at the time. So inheritance. The movie clip inherits from the sprite, which inherits from the display object container, which inherits from the interactive object, which inherits from display object, etc., all the way down to object. And what that means is, it means it's taking stuff that was built into these classes and it's adding more functionality. So what you're seeing here is all these things that have the up arrow. These are inherited properties. So it inherits all this stuff from classes that's built upon, if that makes sense. Now, all this stuff here is stuff that's unique to a movie clip, like current frame, current label, current scene, is playing. You don't need this stuff in a sprite, for example, because a sprite only has one frame. A movie clip is just what it sounds like. It's a movie. So they needed to add functionality to it. And that's about as far as I want to go into this, but I would just want to make it clear that, see all these things with the arrows? These are inherited properties. Add child. That's a common one that you might know. Well, that's from the display object, which, as you can see, is way down the line here. So the point being is the concept of inheritance, which goes along with our concept of a document class. And to put it in a simple statement, I know I've been rambling and this has been a little bit disorganized of a tutorial. I apologize for that. This is sort of the first more theoretical type of tutorial, and I've got to think it a little more ahead of time. Going forward, I'll do that. But the most important concept is a document class is the structure of your project. The FLA and the document class those are the pillars of which everything is built on. You know, these are the tires of the car, or it's the engine of the car. Excuse me. The document class and the FLA are the engine of the car. Everything else is secondary. So just keep this in mind, and we're going to be almost exclusively using this method rather than the timeline. If it's a really simple concept, maybe I'll keep it on the timeline, but I've said enough. So enough of my rambling. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe and spread the word, and check out Urban Santa on the App Store. It's free now. We may move it back to being $1, but if you like these tutorials, this is my plug. I'm donating my time here, and if you think it's valuable, pick up Urban Santa if I do put it back to $1. Thank you for watching.